Yes, that's what I was saying earlier. As far as the hurricanes go, it wasn't effective.
Well, I'm not so sure I agree with it's not effective because, I monitor the weather quite often, and for the last few hurricane seasons, I have seen some crazy, erratic weather patterns where these storms take these crazy positions and patterns in the oceans and do crazy zigzags, loops, and everything else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the research that I was doing was from when they first started it and the programs that they had going back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, mostly the 50s, 60s, and they said that they stopped the program because they said it wasn't effective. But I can't find my source right now for a military officer that said that he was trying to take credit for moving a hurricane off the East Coast. So, but yeah, our listener is correct on that as far as the overall hurricane and the iodide being used.
All right, folks, thanks for listening to The Cutting Edge. We'll be right back after this.
And there's more. Gmail offers several gigabytes of free storage. It's no secret. All your mails, including received mails from your friends, are scanned. Google is methodically collecting personal data in many more ways, using cookies and account information, merely to offer relevant text ads. Google can create incredibly detailed dossiers on every one of us. A former CIA agent claims that Google is cooperating undercover with the US government, including the CIA. Though appearing to simply want the best for its users, Google has already begun to expand its online domination. Total control, and not merely on the web. Google is conducting research in the fields of molecular biology and genetics. What if Google had a file on you, even including your entire genetic data? Every human being would become completely transparent. What do you think? Does Google really worry about our privacy?
Alright everybody, we are back and we are live for the studio session of The Cutting Edge, live every Saturday at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alright Darko, I'll turn it back over to you. Darko, the co-host, with all his research, live on The Cutting Edge. Welcome back.
I just wanted to finish up on the chemtrail portion here before we went to break. Caldera, a scientist at Lawrence Livermore Labs and one of the country's leading experts on weather modification, conducted the original computer modeling for the use of aluminum oxide to fight global warming. He told Columbus Alive, quote, "We originally did this study to show that the program, which was using massive spraying for weather modification, shouldn't be done. And mostly because of the negative health effects." Says the persistent rumors that the Bush administration, this is, like I said, from 2001, says the persistent rumors that the Bush administration will announce geoengineering weather modification projects this spring, and Caldera said this is, quote, political suicide, which is kind of funny because it was never actually called for officially by Obama, but his science and technology czar has said that he's going to be looking at doing that in order to combat global warming. And geoengineering, geoengineering consists of different things. It's not just spraying of particles to reflect the sun's radiation back, but there's dumping, I believe it's iron into the water. and storing it. There's sequestering, CO2 sequestering, where they were going to store that. But so we covered a lot of the cloud seeding portion of weather modification, and I wanted to get to the geoengineering part. And the parts that we're going to cover as far as geoengineering go are anything that pertains to spraying stuff in the skies, because this is just a big subject and a broad subject, and we can just go on hour after hour and hour, but just for the sake of time, keeping this into our little time limit that we have here, we're going to cover anything that has to do with putting stuff in the air for geoengineering. So like I said, we're not going to cover about putting stuff in the water or all the wild radical combat, global warming. The modern concept of geoengineering or climate engineering is usually taken to mean proposals to deliberately manipulate the Earth's climate to counteract the effects of global warming from greenhouse gas emissions. The National Academy of Sciences defined geoengineering as, quote, options that would involve large-scale engineering of our environment in order to combat or counteract the effects of changes in the atmospheric chemistry. Geoengineering would involve the deliberate modification of the Earth's environment on a large scale, quote, to suit human needs and promote habitability. Typically, the term is used to describe proposals to counter the effects of human-induced climate change. Definitions of the term are not universally accepted. The field is currently experiencing a surge of interest as it has now become broadly accepted that global warming is both real and... So, I just want to get your take on that, Delta. We don't want to go off and talk about whether global warming is real or not, but as far as CO2 having a significant change in the climate and their theory about man causing climate change, how do you feel about that?
Well, that is a great question, Darko, and this is my opinion, but my opinion based on what I've seen, what I've read, I do not think that we've had the impact on the environment that they claim that we have,
Yeah, like there's a lot of fear-mongering that goes on whenever there's anything that has to do with that.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that we've had some effect, yeah, but to the extent that the numbers claim that we've had, I just don't see that happening. I don't think so. That's my opinion.
Right. Okay, yeah, I just want to get your take on that, because if there's anyone listening out there, you kind of heard our take on that theory, and even if you do believe in man-made climate change, that's fine. I just wanted to state our what we believe, so that when we get into this all of this stuff that we're getting into and that we're going to get into on the show tonight is all based off one thing, and that is man is killing the earth. And there's a whole lot of fear behind that. And while the government allows all kinds of chemicals spilled in waterways and factories to not emit CO2, but to just pollute, right, the waterways and the landfills and all that. There's so many things that can be done. But global warming has been made into such a political thing that it's hard to even talk about anything related to global warming without having to put that little disclaimer out there that I think it's a scam. So now that you guys know how we feel about it, it says the major environmental organizations such as Friends of the Earth and Greenpeace have typically been reluctant to endorse geoengineering. Some have argued that any public support for geoengineering may weaken the fragile political consensus to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It says here, weaponization of geoengineering techniques is generally prohibited by the Environmental Modification Convention, about in the beginning of the show, as far as the 1977 resolution by the UN. And that was for that was just banning hostile military use of it. It says, however, this does not eliminate the risk. Geoengineering techniques may be used as a weapon of mass destruction, creating droughts or famines designed to destroy or disable an enemy. That was from foreignpolicy.com. Carnegie's Ken Caldera said, quote,